Hello, my love. Welcome to Stories with Oge Pleasure. Please subscribe and leave a like for us. It means the world to us. Please share the video with friends and loved ones. Also turn on the notifications to get notified for next stories. Sit back, let's dive into the story. The morning sun.
Stella walked briskly across the campus of Starlight University, her veil firmly in place as always. The Nigerian sun blazed down on the bustling students, who were either rushing to class or chatting in small groups. Stella avoided the crowd, sticking to the edges of the pathway. She didn't mind being invisible. It was safer that way. Her veil, a soft yet opaque fabric, covered her face entirely, revealing only her bright, expressive eyes. It had been her constant companion since she was old enough to understand her mother's warnings. Stella, her mother Angela, had said countless times, "This veil isn't just to protect you, it's to protect others. The curse is real, my dear. If anyone sees your face, they'll fall ill or worse." Angel came into the world on a quiet, rainy night in Lagos, the city drenched in the heavy downpour that seemed to mirror the intensity of what she carried into the world, as her eyelid flickered, revealing a pair of eyes like deep blue sea, which made everyone that saw her lost consciousness. Except for her mother. From that moment she knew that her daughter is special and she has to protect her and others. At first, Stella didn't believe it. She had tried to take off her veil once in her childhood, but the tragic death of her father, who had seen her face that very day, cemented the fear in her heart. From that moment, the veil became her shield and her prison. Despite her reserved nature, Stella was one of the top students in her department. Professors often praised her intelligence and diligence, though her classmates were more interested in the mystery surrounding her. "Why does she always cover her face?" one girl whispered to her friend as Stella passed by. "Maybe she's hiding scars," the other replied, giggling. "Or maybe she's just ugly," a bolder voice chimed in. Stella pretended not to hear them. She had grown used to the taunts, though they still stung. She was grateful for the library, her sanctuary, where she could lose herself in books and escape the prying eyes of her peers. It was during one of her library visits that Stella first met Josh. He was tall and confident, with an easy smile that seemed to light up the room. He was one of the few students who never joined in the gossip about her. Instead, he treated her like any other person, which was both refreshing and unsettling. "Hey," he said one day, sitting across from her at the library table. "Do you mind if I join you? The other tables are full." Stella hesitated but nodded. She kept her head down, focusing on her textbook, but she couldn't help noticing how comfortable Josh seemed in her presence. Over time, their library encounters became frequent. Josh would ask for help with assignments or simply chat about random topics. Stella found herself laughing at his jokes and even contributing to their conversations. It was the first time in years that she felt normal. Not everyone was happy about their budding friendship, especially Bianca, the self-proclaimed queen of the campus. Bianca was known for her sharp tongue and her ability to dominate any social circle. She had her eyes on Josh and wasn't pleased to see him spending time with Stella. "What does he even see in her?" Bianca fumed to her friends one afternoon. "She's nothing but a freak hiding behind that stupid veil." Bianca made it her mission to make Stella's life miserable. She spread rumors, accusing Stella of being deformed or cursed. "She probably uses juju to keep Josh interested," Bianca said, laughing loudly in the cafeteria. The whispers grew louder, but Stella ignored them. She couldn't afford to let Bianca's antics distract her. One afternoon, as Stella walked toward the library, Bianca and her friends blocked her path. "Where do you think you're going, Madame Vale?" Bianca sneered, crossing her arms. Stella stopped, her heart racing, but she refused to show fear. "Excuse me," she said calmly. Bianca smirked. "You think you're better than us, don't you? Walking around with your nose in the air like some queen. Why don't you show us your face, huh? Or are you scared we'll all die of fright?" The small crowd that had gathered snickered, but Stella held her ground. "I don't have to explain myself to you," she said, her voice steady. "Maybe if you spent more time focusing on your studies and less on other people, you wouldn't have to retake courses every semester." The crowd erupted in laughter, And Bianca's face turned red. Before she could respond, Josh appeared. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice firm. Bianca immediately switched to a sweet tone. "Oh, Josh. We were just having a little chat with Stella here. No harm done." Josh looked at Stella, concern evident in his eyes. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Stella said, brushing past Bianca and her cronies. Later that evening, Stella sat on her bed, replaying the day's events in her mind. Her mother entered the room, carrying a tray of food. "You're quiet," Angela said, sitting beside her. "Mom," Stella began hesitantly, "do you ever think the curse is just in our heads? What if it's not real?" Angela's expression softened. "I understand your doubts, my dear. But remember what happened to your father." Stella nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I just wish I could live a normal life. I hate hiding all the time." Angela hugged her tightly. "You are stronger than you think, Stella. And when the right person comes along, they'll see the real you, not the veil or the curse." The next day, Josh found Stella in the library. "Hey," he said, sitting beside her. "I wanted to ask you something." "What is it?" she asked cautiously. "I don't care about what people say," Josh said, his voice sincere. "I like you, Stella. And I want to know you, the real you." Stella froze, her mind racing. She wanted to trust him, but the fear of the curse loomed large. "Hey, I don't think that's a good idea," she said, standing up abruptly. Josh grabbed her hand gently. "Please, Stella. Just think about it." As she walked away, her heart was in turmoil. For the first time, she wondered if love could truly break the chains of her fear. The weeks passed quietly as Stella continued to navigate her life at the university. Her routine was predictable: lectures, quiet hours in the library, and evenings at home with her mother. Angela remained Stella's strongest support system. She often reminded her daughter that the world's opinions didn't define her. "Stella," Angela would say in her warm, firm tone, "don't let the world make you forget your worth. You are special, and one day someone will see it too." Despite her mother's words, Stella often felt the weight of her loneliness. Her scarf felt like both a shield and a prison. The isolation that came with her uniqueness was something she had learned to bear over the years, but deep down, she craved to connect with someone outside the protective walls her mother had built around her. One afternoon, Stella was seated at her usual spot under a mango tree near the university library. The tree provided shade and comfort, a quiet place where she could escape the noise of campus life. Her nose was buried in a novel, but she couldn't help noticing someone approaching her. It was Josh. "Hey, Stella," he said, flashing his usual cheerful grin. Stella looked up, startled. "Oh, hi," she replied, her voice soft. Josh plopped down on the bench beside her, uninvited but unbothered. "You're always hiding here," he teased lightly. "Don't you ever get tired of being alone?" Stella shifted uncomfortably. "I'm not hiding," she said, closing her book. "I just like the quiet." Josh nodded, his tone becoming gentler. "Get it. But sometimes it's good to have company too." For reasons she couldn't explain, Stella didn't feel the usual urge to shut him out. There was something genuine about Josh, something that made her feel like he wasn't judging her. They talked for a while, mostly about books and school. Josh seemed genuinely interested in what Stella had to say, and for the first time in a long time, she felt a little less alone. The next day, Stella arrived on campus feeling lighter than usual. As she walked to her lecture hall, a familiar voice stopped her in her tracks. "Well, if it isn't Miss Mystery," Bianca sneered, stepping in front of Stella. Bianca was the queen bee of their department, loud, flashy, and always seeking attention. She had been a thorn in Stella's side since their first semester, constantly making snide remarks about her covered face. "What do you want, Bianca?" Stella asked, keeping her voice steady. Bianca smirked, her entourage giggling behind her. "I just don't get it," she said loudly, ensuring everyone nearby could hear. "Why do you always cover your face? What are you hiding? Or are you just too ugly to show yourself?" Stella's heart sank, but she refused to let Bianca see her pain. "You don't have to understand," she said firmly. It's none of your business. Bianca stepped closer, her voice dripping with mock concern. Oh, but it is my business. You're walking around like you're better than everyone else, hiding behind that scarf. Why don't you take it off? Let's see the real you. A small crowd had begun to gather, their curious eyes adding to Stella's discomfort. She wanted to walk away, but her feet felt rooted to the spot. Leave me alone, Bianca, Stella said, her voice trembling slightly. Or what? Bianca challenged, crossing her arms. Before Stella could respond, Josh appeared, his expression serious. Bianca, that's enough, he said, stepping between them. Bianca rolled her eyes. Oh, look, her knight in shining armor, she said sarcastically. What's it to you, Josh? It's called basic decency, Josh shot back. You should try it sometime. The crowd murmured in approval, and Bianca's confidence faltered. She glared at Josh, then turned her attention back to Stella. This isn't over, she hissed before stalking off with her entourage. Stella let out a shaky breath as the crowd dispersed. Are you okay? Josh asked. She nodded, though she didn't trust herself to speak. That evening, Stella told her mother about the incident. Listened carefully. Her face calm but her eyes filled with concern. You handled it well, my darling, her mother said, reaching out to hold Stella's hand. But I wish you didn't have to go through this. I don't know if I can keep doing this, Mom, Stella admitted, her voice breaking. I'm tired of being judged, of being stared at like I'm some kind of freak. Angela pulled her into a hug. You are not a freak, she said firmly. You are my beautiful daughter and you are stronger than you think. Don't let people like Bianca break you. Stella nodded, but the weight in her chest didn't lift. She knew her mother was right, but the constant scrutiny was wearing her down. The next morning, Stella found an anonymous note in her locker. You are stronger than you think. Don't let anyone dim your light. She stared at the note, her heart racing. It wasn't signed, but she had a feeling she knew who had written it. For the first time in years, she felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to face the world alone. Stella sat in her room, staring out of the window at the bustling streets below. The events of the past weeks had left her conflicted. Her encounter with Josh had stirred feelings she wasn't ready to confront. She thought about how kind he had been, how he had stood up for her against Bianca, and how he seemed genuinely interested in her well-being. But beneath it all, there was a voice in her head reminding her of her mother's warnings. Stella, focus on yourself, Angela would often say. There's a time for everything, and right now, your studies should be your priority. But how could she ignore the way her heart raced whenever Josh was around? She decided it was time to talk to her mother about it. Stella had always been her guide, her anchor in the storm. That evening, Stella met her mother in the kitchen, preparing dinner. The aroma of jollof rice filled the small apartment. Angela turned as she walked in, her face thoughtful. Mom, Stella began hesitantly, can we talk? Of course, my dear, Stella replied, wiping her hands on a towel and gesturing for her to sit at the dining table. What's on your mind? Stella hesitated, searching for the right words. There's this boy, his name is Josh. He's been helping me a lot lately, especially with Bianca and her constant bullying. Think he likes me, Mom. But I don't know if I should. Let him get close to me. Angela studied her daughter for a moment, her expression a mix of concern and understanding. Stella, I know you're at an age where feelings like this start to emerge. It's natural. But you have to ask yourself, is this the right time? You've worked so hard to get here to this university. Boys can be a distraction. Stella nodded, her heart heavy. I know, Mom. But he doesn't feel like a distraction. He feels like a friend. Someone I can talk to. Angela reached out and placed a hand on Stella's. Friendship is a good thing, my dear. But make sure it stays that way for now. You have so much potential, do you understand? Don't let anything take you off your path. Stella smiled faintly, feeling a bit more at ease. Thanks, Mom. I'll be careful. The following day, Stella found herself sitting under her favorite tree on campus, a book in her hands. Josh approached, his usual warm smile lighting up his face. "Hey," he said, sitting down beside her. "You've been quiet lately. Everything okay?" Stella glanced at him and nodded. "Just thinking. About life, about school." Josh leaned back against the tree, looking up at the sky. "Life can be a lot sometimes. But you've got this, Stella. You're one of the strongest people I know." His words brought a small smile to her lips. "Thanks, Josh. That means a lot." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the sounds of the bustling campus around them. Slowly, Stella began to open up, sharing bits of her life, her struggles, and her dreams. Josh listened intently, never interrupting, always encouraging. As the weeks passed, their friendship deepened. Stella found herself looking forward to their conversations, their shared laughter, and the way Josh made her feel seen and valued. He never pressured her, never asked for more than she was willing to give. But not everyone was happy about their growing bond. Bianca, the ever-troublemaker, watched from a distance, her jealousy simmering. She had noticed how Josh seemed to gravitate toward Stella, how he defended her at every turn. One afternoon, Bianca cornered Stella near the cafeteria, her usual entourage in tow. Well, Bianca sneered. "If it isn't our little saint, Stella. Still hiding behind that innocent act, I see. What's your secret? How did you manage to get Josh's attention?" Stella stood her ground, refusing to be intimidated. "Bianca, I'm not interested in whatever game you're trying to play. If you have a problem with me, that's your issue, not mine." Bianca's eyes narrowed. "You think you're better than me, don't you? Always walking around like you're some kind of a model. Let me tell you something. Josh doesn't really care about you. He's just being nice. But once he sees who you really are, he'll move on." Stella felt a surge of anger but chose not to respond. Instead, she walked away, leaving Bianca fuming. That evening, Josh found her sitting alone under the tree, her expression troubled. "Hey," he said softly, sitting beside her. "What happened?" Stella hesitated. "Is it not Bianca? She won't let me be." She told him about the encounter with Bianca. Josh listened quietly, his jaw tightening as she spoke. "I'm sorry you have to deal with that," he said finally. "Bianca's just insecure. Don't let her get to you." Stella looked at him, her eyes filled with doubt. "Do you really mean everything you've said to me, Josh? Or is Bianca right? Are you just being nice?" Josh turned to her, his expression earnest. "Stella, I've never lied to you. You're one of the most amazing people I've ever known." Bianca doesn't know what she's talking about. Don't let her words make you doubt yourself. She felt a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly seen, truly valued. As the semester progressed, Stella and Josh's friendship became the talk of the campus. Some admired their bond, while others, like Bianca, tried to tear it down. But through it all, Stella found strength in her mother's advice and Josh's unwavering support. Still deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that their connection was more than just friendship. She wondered if Josh felt the same, but she wasn't ready to explore that yet. For now, she was content to have him by her side, a friend who reminded her of her worth and gave her the courage to face the challenges ahead. And so, as the sun set on another day, Stella walked home with a renewed sense of purpose. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure. She was no longer alone. The next few days at university were filled with a strange mix of excitement and uncertainty for Stella. Her relationship with Josh had started to grow, but the shadow of Bianca's rivalry still loomed over her. Every time she thought of how Bianca had tried to publicly humiliate her, a part of her wished she could confront Bianca and put an end to it once and for all. But Stella was more than determined to rise above the drama. She focused on her studies, spending most of her time in the library and with Josh. Josh had become more than just a friend. He was her anchor. He was always there for her, supporting her without hesitation. Stella could see that he cared for her in a way no one else did. It wasn't just the late-night study sessions or the shared jokes. It was his gentle kindness. Whenever she felt overwhelmed, he knew exactly how to calm her nerves. It felt like something real, And Stella couldn't help but wonder if this was the beginning of something more. One afternoon, as Stella and Josh were walking across campus, Josh turned to her, his face serious. "Stella, I've been meaning to ask you something." She raised an eyebrow, sensing that this was important. "What's on your mind, Josh?" He hesitated, then spoke softly. "Do you ever think about what's next for us? I mean, after university. The real world." Stella felt her heart skip a beat. She hadn't expected this kind of question. They were both still in school, and while she enjoyed their time together, the thought of their future felt distant. But Josh's sincerity made her realize just how much he valued their relationship. "I think about it sometimes," Stella replied carefully. "But I'm also focused on my studies right now. The world feels so big, and I don't know exactly where I fit into it yet." Josh nodded, understanding. "Get that. I just want you to know that I'm here for you no matter what. Whatever path you choose, I'll support you." Stella smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. "Thank you, Josh. That means a lot to me." But no matter how much Josh reassured her, Stella couldn't shake off the feeling that something was missing. Her mother's words still echoed in her mind. "You are so much more than this curse." Could it be that her destiny was waiting for her to make a choice? A choice to be herself fully, without fear. The next day, the tension between Stella and Bianca came to a head. Stella was walking toward the cafeteria when she saw Bianca standing in front of her, blocking her path with a smirk on her face. Well, look who finally decided to show up," Bianca sneered, her eyes narrowed. Stella remained calm, not giving in to Bianca's taunts. "What do you want, Bianca?" Bianca's gaze flickered toward Josh, who had just caught up with Stella. "I just wanted to remind you that you can't hide forever, Stella. I've seen how close you've gotten to Josh. Don't think for a second that he doesn't know about your little secret." Stella's heart raced, but she refused to let Bianca see her vulnerability. "Josh knows exactly who I am, Bianca. He doesn't care about my face, and neither should you." Bianca's lips twisted into a cruel smile. "Oh, I'm sure he doesn't care. But the rest of the world, the rest of your friends, they'll never understand." Josh stepped forward, standing protectively next to Stella. "You need to leave her alone, Bianca. You've made your point. Now go." Bianca's expression hardened, but she knew she had lost. With a final glare, she turned and walked away, leaving Stella and Josh standing in the aftermath. The air between them felt heavy, but Stella could breathe a little easier now that Bianca had finally backed off. "Are you okay?" Josh asked, his voice soft but concerned. Stella nodded, her heart still racing. "Yeah, I'm fine. I wish people would just leave me alone." Josh placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "They will. You've got me. And I'm not going anywhere." She smiled, grateful for his support. But even as she stood there, surrounded by the safety of Josh's presence, she knew she had a bigger choice ahead of her. It was time to stop hiding, to stop being afraid of what others might think. She had to face her fears head-on, starting with herself. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but Stella was ready. She had Josh by her side, and she was determined to show the world the real her. It wasn't just about breaking the curse. It was about finding her voice and standing strong, no matter who tried to bring her down. The following days at university passed in a blur for Stella. The tension with Bianca seemed to have subsided, at least for the moment. Bianca had backed off after that confrontation in the cafeteria, but Stella knew that it was only a matter of time before she would try to start something again. Still, Stella refused to let Bianca's drama rule her life. She had bigger things to focus on, like her growing relationship with Josh. Things were changing and she could feel it. For the first time in years, she felt like she was living her life for herself, not hiding or running away from who she truly was. The support Josh offered made it easier, but there was still a nagging fear in the back of her mind. What if the world wasn't ready to accept her as she was? What if, in the end, she would always be the girl with the face cover, the girl hiding from the world? One afternoon, after a long day of classes, Josh invited Stella to a quiet cafe they both enjoyed. It was tucked away on a corner of the campus, a place where they could talk without distractions. As she walked in, she spotted Josh already seated at their usual table. His face lit up when he saw her. "Hey you," he greeted with a smile. "How was your day?" Stella slid into the seat across from him. "Long, but manageable. And yours?" "Same here," he replied, his gaze softening as he looked at her. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said the other day, about your curse and everything. I just want to make sure you know that no matter what, you don't have to go through this alone." Stella looked down at her hands, unsure of how to respond. "No, Josh. I know that you're here for me, but sometimes I still feel like I'm hiding. Like I'm not enough. Like if people really knew the truth, they wouldn't accept me." Josh's expression was serious, his eyes filled with understanding. "Stella, you're more than enough. You've been through a lot, but that doesn't define who you are. See you. The real you. And I care about you." She felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. But deep down, there was still a fear that she couldn't shake. The fear that she wasn't meant for happiness, that the curse would always be a part of her life, no matter how much she wished otherwise. "What if you're the one who can't handle it?" Stella asked quietly, looking into Josh's eyes. "What if one day you can't look past my face?" Josh reached across the table and took her hand in his, squeezing it gently. "That's not going to happen. I've already told you. I don't care what's under that cover. Care about you. All of you. I love you, Stella." The words hung in the air, and for a moment Stella couldn't breathe. Josh had said the words she had feared would never come from anyone. But here he was, telling her he loved her, curse and all. Her heart raced as she fought back tears. "You mean it?" "Of course I mean it," Josh said, his voice full of sincerity. "I've meant it from the moment I got to know you. Don't let your fear hold you back, Angel. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." The weight that had been crushing her for so long began to lift. For the first time in years, Stella felt the smallest hint of hope creeping in. Maybe, just maybe, she could live the life she had always dreamed of, free from judgment, free from fear, and free from the curse that had shaped her existence for so long. But as the days passed, she soon realized that the road ahead wouldn't be as easy as she had hoped. Bianca wasn't done with her yet. The next few weeks saw Bianca becoming more vocal and aggressive, spreading rumors about Stella and her relationship with Josh. She called her every name in the book, anything she could think of to hurt her. One afternoon, as Stella was walking to class when she overheard a group of students gossiping about her. She tried to ignore it, but the words floated through the air like daggers. "Did you hear? Stella's been hanging out with Josh a lot lately. I heard he's totally into her, even though she's so messed up." "Yeah, I heard that too. Who would want to be with a girl like that? She's got issues, big ones. Probably just using Josh to get attention." The whispers stung. Stella's heart sank, and for a moment, she felt the walls close in around her. Was this how people saw her? Was she nothing more than a sideshow in their eyes? Just then, she felt Josh's presence beside her. "Hey," he said softly, as if sensing her distress. "Don't let them get to you. You're stronger than that." Stella looked up at him, her eyes filled with both gratitude and fear. "I don't know how much longer I can handle this, Josh. It's like they won't ever leave me alone." Josh placed a hand on her shoulder, his grip firm and reassuring. "They can't break you, Stella. You have more strength in you than anyone realizes. And I'm not going anywhere." But as they walked to their next class, Stella's mind was clouded with doubt. Bianca's words had cut deep, and the whispers from her classmates had only made things worse. Could she really rise above this? Could she really find happiness? Or was the curse of her face always going to be a part of her life? She couldn't stop wondering. Was love enough to fight the world's judgment? Or would she have to fight this battle on her own? It was as though every corner she turned, she was confronted with the cruel reality that people would always judge her. The rumors about her and Josh spread like wildfire, and with each passing day, it seemed that more and more people were talking behind her back. Despite this, Stella tried her best to stay strong. Josh's support kept her grounded, But even his comforting words couldn't completely erase the feeling of isolation she sometimes felt. The weight of the curse, the fear of being rejected, and the judgment from her peers. It was all too much to carry. One day, as Stella L. sat alone in the cafeteria, trying to eat her lunch in peace, Bianca appeared, flanked by her usual group of followers. She had been avoiding her, but it seemed like Bianca wasn't going to let her off that easily. She marched over to Stella's table, her eyes filled with that familiar malice. Well, if it isn't the campus freak," Bianca sneered, her tone dripping with disdain. "Still hiding behind that face cover, huh? How pathetic. You think anyone actually believes you've got it all figured out? Newsflash, Stella. You'll always be the ugly girl with the mask, no matter how many boys you manage to fool." Stella stood up, her hands trembling, but she refused to let Bianca see her fear. "You really don't get it, do you?" she said, her voice steady but laced with frustration. "You're the one who's pathetic. Hiding behind your fake persona, trying to tear others down just to feel better about yourself. But guess what, Bianca? It's not working. People can see right through you." Bianca's face twisted in anger. "You're so full of yourself. Do you really think Josh is going to stick around after he realizes what you really are? He's just using you to make himself feel better. You're nothing more than a charity case." Stella could feel the tears welling up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had dealt with Bianca's cruelty for too long to let it get to her now. "You know what, Bianca?" Stella continued, her voice quieter now but filled with determination. "I don't care what you think. I don't need your approval or anyone else's. I'm done hiding and I'm done letting you control how I feel. I'm not your punching bag anymore." With that, Stella turned and walked away, leaving Bianca standing there, seething with rage. She could hear the whispers starting again, but this time they didn't affect her the way they once did. She had said her piece, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was finally taking control of her own story. Later that evening, Stella met Josh at their favorite cafe. She had been avoiding him the past few days, worried that the tension with Bianca and the rumors would somehow push him away. But as soon as she saw him, her worries melted away. His smile was warm and he opened his arms, welcoming her into his embrace. "How's my girl doing?" he asked softly, pulling back to look at her. Stella smiled, feeling the weight on her shoulders lift just a little. "Better now that I'm here with you," she said, her voice a little shaky but sincere. Josh reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "You're amazing, Stella. I know things have been tough, but you're stronger than you think. Don't let anyone, especially Bianca, make you feel less than you are. I love you for who you are, not for anyone's opinion." "I'm just so tired of it all, Josh," Stella admitted, her eyes filling with tears. "Sometimes it feels like no matter how hard I try, I'll never be enough for the world. I'm always going to be the girl with the face cover, the girl hiding from everyone. I just want to be free from it all." Josh squeezed her hand, his voice filled with tenderness. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone. Not to Bianca, not to your classmates, not to anyone. You've already proven that you're strong, that you can rise above it. And as for me, I'll always love you, Angel. No matter what." She looked at him, her heart swelling with emotion. She had been so afraid of being rejected, of never finding someone who truly saw her for who she was. But in that moment, she realized that she had already found someone who did. Someone who loved her despite the curse, despite the judgment, despite the fears she carried. For the first time in a long while, Stella allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a future that wasn't defined by the curse. A future where she could be loved, accepted, and most importantly, free. The next day, Stella made a decision. She was tired of hiding. She was tired of letting fear dictate her life. That morning, as she walked onto campus, she made a bold move. She wasn't wearing her face cover. As she stepped into the sunlight, the world seemed to slow down. Students glanced at her in surprise, their eyes widening in shock. Some whispered, others gawked, but Stella didn't care. She stood tall, her head held high, and for the first time, she felt like she was standing in her truth. Bianca, who had been walking across the quad, froze when she saw Stella. Her mouth dropped open, her eyes wide with disbelief. "This is what you've been hiding," she muttered, barely able to contain her shock. Stella didn't respond. She simply smiled calmly, her heart racing but her confidence unwavering. "Yes, Bianca, this is me. Take a good look. Maybe next time you'll think before judging someone." The students around her began whispering, some nodding in approval. Stella could feel their eyes on her, but she didn't care. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was free. As she walked across the campus, Josh found her, a proud smile on his face. "I'm so proud of you, Stella, you're finally free." She smiled back, her heart full of hope. And I'm not going back to the way I was. I'm ready to live my life for me, for who I really am." And with that, Stella knew that the curse was finally broken. She was no longer the girl hiding behind a face cover. She was Stella, strong, beautiful, and free.